The U.S. is on edge. Protests against racial inequality and police brutality have hit more than a dozen cities, triggered by the death of George Floyd a month ago. Statues of divisive figures, such as Confederate leaders or those who defended slavery, have been toppled or vandalized. Now President Donald Trump has signed an executive order to protect such monuments. He announced the signing of the order on Twitter, saying it'll combat recent criminal violence, while warning of long prison terms for what he called lawless acts. Trump also said instead of taking a trip to his golf course in New Jersey this weekend, he decided to stay in Washington, D.C. to make sure law and order is enforced. He also ramped up his rhetoric against protesters, saying the arsonists, anarchists, looters, and agitators have been largely stopped. I'm doing what's necessary to keep our communities safe, and these people will be brought to justice. The executive order directs officials to enforce an existing law that has a maximum 10-year prison term for anyone who damages federal property. Just across the street from the White House, protesters have tried to tear down this statue of Andrew Jackson, the 7th U.S. president.
It should be knocked down and put in a museum so people can understand the history of what's going on here. It shouldn't be thrown away, but it should be put away.
Trump has called himself a fan of Jackson and even has his portrait hung up in the Oval Office. And in another part of D.C., protesters have targeted this statue of Abraham Lincoln that's meant to celebrate the Emancipation Proclamation.
This statue is a very prominent, very clear symbolism of white saviorism. It does not represent the freed man. It represents a man who feels that he should be honored because he showed some kind of humanitarianism towards another human being. Seeing a black man at a white man's feet, barely clothed, whether he's looking up and off into the distance, into the future, or he's looking directly into his eyes, it is not a proper representation of us being able to pull ourselves up.
Trump has said removing the Lincoln and Jackson statues is not going to happen. But D.C. Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton says she'll introduce a bill in the House of Representatives next week to have the two statues removed. Statues of other historical figures like George Washington, Theodore Roosevelt, and Christopher Columbus have also been targeted across the country. Through their complex legacies, for many, are reminders of America's painful past. Natasha Hussain, TRT World.